Welcome everyone to the stream.
Gross means big.
Also it means big.
Yeah.
Big bunker.
That's what I meant by large bunker.
Okay. So welcome everyone. Let's get our announcements done while we get this crap undone over with. Link down below for our sponsor, which is Shockbite Gaming Servers. They have a bunch of games. They even added a couple more there, Gamera.
Oh.
Like, they've been adding all kinds of crazy stuff. What was the last one they added? They sent me an email about it, and I don't remember what it was. Let me see. They have Minecraft. Oh, here, I'll just show it on my screen. Woo-hoo!
There you go.
And I'll let them see it. Yeah, there we go. Alright, they got Minecraft, Ark Survival Evolved, Rust, Satisfactory, Terraria, 7 Days to Die, Valheim, Factorio, Project Zomboid, Unturned, Gary's Mod, Team Fortress 2, CSGO, Starbound, DayZ, SCP Secret Laboratory. That's the new one that I got the email on. Now they have servers for SCP Secret Lab.
I'm not even familiar with SCP Secret Lab.
I don't know if you'd be down for it. It is very PvP oriented.
Oh, yeah, I'm not really a PvP guy.
And, yeah, neither am I. I've played it a few times with some friends, and, like, if everybody's on the same voice chat, it can be kind of fun between rounds.
Sure.
Because the way they do it is, everybody goes into the same lobby, and then everybody is assigned something at random. You're either assigned as a D-boy, a scientist, a security guard, one of the SCPs, and it gives you an SCP at random.
Nice.
And there's a certain selection they pick from.
Right.
And one SCP is not picked unless there's a second one. And that is the friend computer. It won't give you the friend computer unless there's a second SCP.
Okay.
Because you can't really kill anybody with the friend computer easily.
Gotcha.
Like, it's really hard. They give a 15-minute time limit until the base explodes. And then there's the last two factions, which are on the surface. Or something like that. There's one faction on the surface, and they're called the Chaos. And their goal is to go in, rescue the D-boys, and kill the scientists, and kill everybody who works for SCP.
Okay.
They're the closest thing to the good guys.
I see.
But, yeah, there's that. Anyway, servers start at $2.50 a month. So, yeah, fun times there. The next one on our list is to help our artists. If you wish to help our artists, we will be most appreciative. Here's that links for that. If you want to be added to the wonderful list of artists that we could use help, by all means, message us. We'll take a look at your art, and we will decide if we can add you to the list and help you out. And trust me, we're not dicks, for the most part.
I mean, to be fair, if we were, we'd probably say that.
Yeah, that's true. We're pretty honest about it. Like, in some games, I'm a complete asshole.
Some?
In some games, yes.
Some.
And sitting there going in the background, I'm like, yes, in some games, I am a complete asshole. Not in most games. A lot of games I tend
If it's a game where you get to be the murderous sociopath, yeah, no, you are the asshole every single freaking time.
But there are a lot of games, like, especially RPGs, where I try to be the good guy. Like, more often than not.
If you're given the chance to be evil, you make evil blush.
Well, no, I always play two characters in RPGs. I play, like, a really good guy, and then I play, like, a murderous, evil sociopath. I go both ends of the spectrum. So, there is that.
I'm just delighted and amused.
She only sees me when I play evil. She doesn't see me when I play the good guy, because it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I mean,
But in any case, yeah, you're not the sort to screw over somebody looking for help promoting their art.
Yeah, no, I'm not that bad. So, there is that. Someone messaged me? Did I get a message? No, I got a noise. Okay, that was weird. Moving on. Small Hole Hut. Sup, fam? How's it going? Hey, man, it's going fine. We're just getting started with the discussion today. We're just getting into it because we talk D&D on Tuesdays. Well, tabletops in general. Down to the bottom there. Alright, what am I going to look up or do while we're talking? Picked a good time to drop by. Oh, yes. Yes, you did. Today, we're going to be educating people on the importance of Session 0, problematic players, how to deal with them, harassment in games, and how to deal with that.
Yep.
I think those are the main things we're going for. I can't think of anything else.
That seems like a good 2 hours of content.
Yeah. Biblically accurate angles. Look them up. I'm afraid.
Ooh, like the classic descriptions of angels. Like whirling rings of fire with multiple legs and eyes.
Yeah, I've seen these. Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah, angels, not angles. Yeah, be not afraid, you know. Sir, this is the scariest moment of my life. Oh, where is it? Yeah. Like, all kinds of weird shit. Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can get the image in a tab. Okay, of course. It says, shit, this is like the scariest moment of my life. It's like, yeah, no. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's just like, whatever. Oh yeah, he's a sexy beast, and there's a reason behind that. But hey, we work with it, and then we of course got the SCPs, which some of them look like this.
Yeah,
which is fun. Oh man, Nah, you want to mess with your players in D&D? Throw biblically accurate angels at them. Go to town.
Yeah, quite a bit different than your classic Solar Archon.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Shockbite real quick and go to my client area because we're going to shut down the server finally. Because I guarantee you nobody's on it. Yeah, SCP is pretty dope. We were just talking about it because Shockbite actually offers SCP as a one of the games they run.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard about the SCT game, but that's kind of interesting.
There are two of them actually.
Oh,
there's SCP Secret Lab, and then there's SCP Containment Breach.
Okay.
Containment Breach is the single player game.
Gotcha.
And you're dealing with a SCP called the Peanut.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know the Peanut specifically, but I do know that the more innocuous sounding the SCP, usually the more screwed up it is.
Let's see if I can find a decent picture that isn't, too, gonna get me in trouble. So,
oh dear.
That's the Peanut. It's a statue.
Okay.
It only moves when you're not looking at it.
Classic.
Yep. But it releases like a viscous, smell-filling fluid out of it at all times, and so they have to send someone in to clean it. So when the SCP organization does that, they send in 3 dudes, 2 to watch it, 1 to clean.
Gotcha.
And it can move when you blink.
Yep.
And it snaps people's necks.
Sounds about right.
So SCP Containment Breach is all about this thing escaping. And you were a D-boy having to deal with that. So
probably
times.
don't get paid enough.
Well, if you're a D-boy, you don't get paid, period. you are a criminal for life, and you don't get to do anything.
I see.
Let's see. When was the last time someone logged in? Let's see. Annie Jellyfish, March 29th. You were May 17th. Care Bear was March 6th. Goddard was May 15th. I was May 17th. So we are the last ones to ever log in.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, so let us put the stop to the server. Let's give it the stop command. And we're going to tell it to... the iPods did stop it in one story, I believe. And that's one of the things I love about the SCP thing. It is literally a collection of, like, internet, like, creepypastas. So, there is that. Alright, so... I feel like I should just log in. Oh. Do you let me log in? There we go. Alright, I should just delete all these files.
Which files are those?
The server.
It's gonna get rid of it entirely? Nuke it?
I mean, are we ever gonna play it again?
I mean, that's a fair question. I do tend to be a bit of a pack rat, so I don't necessarily get rid of things until I need to get rid of them. But if you're starting to think of ideas for like our next game to play on there, then yeah, I suppose.
And
Can't
not to mention, it is like we're talking. How big is this damn thing? I'll have to look. I think it's upwards to like 20, 30 gigs in size.
Wow.
So that's also why I'm like, maybe we should just get rid of it. I can save the world file.
Oh yeah. Then that would make sense.
Like, just save the world file and just delete everything else.
Sure.
I might just do that. See, system tools. Do I still have? I know I have it. FTP. Files. There it is. Oh, damn it. I need to run it as an administrator. I am stupid. So, one of the things we wanted to discuss today, Jamaica Joe's Junkyard is cool, robot rips you off, and sales is classic. Yeah. So, we want to discuss the importance of Session 0.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
I never do a game anymore without a Session 0. And let me say up front, though, that Session 0s are going to be different depending on if you're running with like a group of people where you know all of them, or, you know, a group of new people. Because if it's new people, then you've got more ground to cover.
Right.
So even with the group that I've been playing with for years at this point, we still have Session 0s, though they're focused on some other things than you might do in a traditional Session 0.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess I'll start off while you're working on some files.
Oh, I mean, I can do both. But
okay,
yeah,
well.
you can start off either way. That works wonderfully.
Yeah, Session 0, of course, if anybody listening's not familiar with the concept, is basically just the idea of having a get-together with the group before you're actually playing to set what the ground rules for the campaign are going to be. And that's not necessarily in the sense of you guys can't do this, you guys won't do this. It's sort of setting expectations. And if you've ever worked in a customer service type job, you know how important it is to make sure that your customers know what to expect. Even if, you know, you're going to give them bad news, as long as you said it's a possibility, they're not going to be as upset about it. And so you use a Session 0 to basically say, hey, this is the kind of game that we're going to play, you know, and ideally some of this might be covered if you're like advertising for players. Some of this will go in the ad. So what system we're going to play? What's the tone of the game? Are we using any optional rules or third-party sources? And just kind of give them an expectation. You know, what character classes are allowed. Anything in the player's handbook is fine, or anything in any official wizard source book is fine. Um, but more so than the mechanical parts, especially with like a new group, you may want to set some other expectations in terms of the gameplay. And the example I'll use for this is I recently started running Call of Cthulhu, and I don't normally run horror games. It's not really my vibe. I love investigation horror. I'm a little dodgier on, but Call of Cthulhu is really good at both. And so I said my players, this is going to be a horror game. You're going to deal with themes of, losing control. Your sanity is going to slip as, things progress. Your characters may die. I'm not a very killy GM, but, in Call of Cthulhu, you can get one shot if you're standing in the wrong place and you're up against something nasty enough. But it's very important to me that my players have fun. That is the key thing about the session zero. You're trying to set it up so that you and your players will both have fun in the long term. And so what I would said to them is, look, if I am describing a spider monster that's, come to suck your blood, and you've got a terrible fear of spiders, all you've got to say to me is, hey, can you, dial it back a little bit? And I will try to be less evocative with that description. A Call of Cthulhu game is here to make your characters uncomfortable, but not to make the players uncomfortable. That's the important thing.
Oh, yeah. That is very much the important thing there.
Yeah, you can use it to set other ground rules. If you've had problem players in the past, especially if you have one of those potential problem players that you think might be an issue in the group, you can set some ground rules about, hey, nobody's going to be the star character this. We're going to try to rotate the spotlight. I'm going to do my best to make sure everybody gets a turn, with the focus on them. If you've got like someone you suspect might be a spotlight hog.
Which happens.
You may also discuss with people, hey, if I make a wrong rules call, if it's something you can, speak up quickly about, like oh, the spell's range is different, that's fine. But if it's something, that takes more discussion, just see me after the game. We'll fix it in the future going forward. We just don't want to bog down the game too much in the middle of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just give your players the tools they need to have fun and how to interact with you in the game world, and set their expectations.
Yeah. One tool I found that has helped me, especially with online games, as soon as, Google freaking Chrome, not Chrome, Drive plays with me, is the, if I still have it, I have my version of it, but I could have sworn I had just a blank form of it, which I don't. Okay. I'll just show mine, if it will let me. Yep. Can I open in Acrobat DC? Yep, there we go. And it won't let me erase it, will it? I guess I could do that. It's called the Consent in Gaming form. Someone came up with this. And it basically shows you, and I'm going to see if I can't do, let's go with Stellaris. Yeah, let's do a Stellaris gameplay. There you go. I'm in the corner now. It shows basically what players are okay, what if the game was a movie ring, what movie ring are you alright with, what horror things are you good with, and it does green, yellow, red. Same thing with romance, social, cultural issues, mental, physical health, and then you can add topics.
Yes.
And then it says, do you want the GM to follow up with you to clarify any of these responses? If so, which ones? And I found that this actually kind of works. Jacob Flower, hey, welcome. How's it going? Hey, man, it's going great. How are you doing, my friend? So I use this a lot, especially for my online games.
Sure.
So that has helped me out a lot. And then the other things I've used is it Gameplay Survey? Yes. I made a form on Google Forms.
Okay.
And I even add little pictures and everything. It'll come up for you shortly. And so the first, and it's a series of questions that I send to my players, and this gives me an idea of, especially newer ones, what kind of a game they want. And sometimes people aren't comfortable talking about what kind of game they want. They're better with doing a questionnaire like this.
Sure.
Because some people just aren't very social. Like, I have 2 people in my games right now that are very socially shy. And they have issues being confrontational, especially if someone disagrees with them on something.
Okay.
And I found this gets me a more honest answer from them. Instead of them just bowing down or kowtowing to the more vocal players.
Right. Absolutely.
And that is something you guys, like, if you're newer GMs, be careful about. All right? Because you're going to have occasionally players who are going to bully people. 2.0 with the raid. Welcome. Hi, buddy. Raid.
Welcome, traveler.
Yeah. You said the bullying thing. Yeah. And sometimes it's not even to the level of bullying. Sometimes people are just
Welcome,
energetic and
traveler.
enthusiastic, and they have a tendency to steamroll people.
Yeah, okay, we got OD's Heel Father and Metallic Sunrise. Thank you for joining the tavern. Welcome. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and enjoy. And that's true. Some people just get so passionate about whatever game they want, they'll run people over. And I'll fully admit, I've done this.
Yeah, I've had a gamer who is just so enthusiastic that he just absolutely won't let anybody get a word in edgewise.
Oh, yeah.
And you hate to douse that with water, but
Yeah. They're all like, yes, give us your ale. Yes, this is my wonderful, wonderful Stein that I got. I love it. But no, like, so the first question I ask in this is, like, how lethal do you want the game?
Mm-hmm.
And it's on a scale of 0 to 6. Like, 0 is you are probably going to be unconscious or disabled at worst. Actually, I'm going to view this as a person, so that way all the information gets viewed. But you won't suffer permanent injury and all that jazz. My day's going fine. ODs, I'm doing great. I'm glad, Banana, you love the Stein. I got this from Twisted Taverns, and I love it to death. And like a TPK will result in the characters being rescued. That is like the lowest scale.
Mm-hmm.
Average is normal lethality, which is what we expect in most games. Disabled enemies will attempt to kill disabled characters when the opportunity rises, but we'll typically focus
Welcome,
on
traveler.
important threats first. Welcome, Sherbert232 to the tavern. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and have fun. But then the worst one is number 6, which I'll try to make these like slightly humorous.
Yes.
Because that was like the goal. So it's like, we are immortal, comic book heroes. It's only a flesh wound. It's only a flesh wound. Normal lethality, hurt me plenty. Game of Thrones. And then the last one is, I need to feed my pyre.
Yes, hide behind the pile of dead bards.
Bring a stack of new characters to every session so you can warm yourself around the pyre at which the DM will throw them upon. How should dead characters and items be handled? And this is actually where the lower the number, the worse it gets. 1 is it's completely gone. It's lost in time and space. 2 is keep the big stuff. 3 is something to remember by. 4 is just a few things. 5 is most of the stuff survived. And then 6 is everything's available, but that can bog down shit. Metallic Sunrise, bards are the sacrifice every session. I'm sorry, sire, but we have this pile of dead bards. Then it's how should new characters be built? New blood plus, new blood plus, and all that stuff. The worst one I've ever seen, but I put it on here just in case someone really want to be sadistic, and it gets me the idea of what mindset they're in. Start from 0. New characters start at level 1.
Yeah.
I would never put that in my games because I feel like that's not fair.
It is difficult to deal with.
But at the same time, if someone picks that, I know that they want the brutal gameplay.
Absolutely.
And if the rest of the game is like, or the rest of the party really doesn't want that, that might be the type of person I recommend. Hey, maybe you should go play like one of the Soulsborne games to get that out of your system. It's like we don't do that here. So there's that. Surprisingly, in my games, the bards are not the ones who always die. Bards are not the dead ones.
I'm just referencing the Gamers movie.
Oh yeah, I know. What makes level 0 so rough? Because when someone dies, they're usually everybody is level like 7 or 8, and if you start at level 1, that is such a power difference that the level 1 is going to get stomped.
Yeah.
Every time they turn around. I don't play any Soulsborne games at current because I know I do not have the patience to deal with it. I would probably want to send my fist through the TV or through my screen. And I know that about myself. I'm just not that patient of a person. Then, how should new characters be introduced? There's a lot of new ways. The worst one is no new characters. If someone dies, the party continues short a member. I hate that idea.
Yeah, I honestly probably wouldn't even offer that as an option, but I guess it does tell you where somebody's head's at.
Yep. I always put it on there just to get an idea of their headspace. Then there's how you want the campaign's plot to be handled. And it goes from railroad to sandbox.
Okay.
And then there's like episodic in there put in as well. And that gives me an idea of what kind of a setup they want.
Sure.
And I will say this, if you're playing a game, definitely talk with your players if you're the DM, or talk with the DM if you're a player, to see if this is going to be a railroad game, a railroad light, or a sandbox game, or mostly sandbox.
Welcome, traveler.
Yeah.
Welcome, shiny me spirit, to the tavern. Welcome. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and enjoy. I prefer, honestly, sandbox, or I do, like, railroad, very railroad light. Metallic Sunrise, I prefer episodic session, as the tension can carry on from each. That is true. Episodic does offer that. And some tabletop games are better about that than others.
Depending on what genre I run, it'll honestly determine what I do for this. I'm usually very, hey, the players pick the adventures. I'm going to throw the hooks at you. You guys decide what you want to follow. I might have like a loose meta plot in mind, and we'll get there when we get there. But that's if I'm doing fantasy.
That sounds like off the rails. The campaign does have a central plot.
Yes.
Plenty of side quests, freedom to roam off the plot as much as you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually how I go with a fantasy. But like, if I'm running a superhero game, I am giving you episodic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Shiny Miss Spirit. Rogue does greatly appreciate the ale. How goes the RP talk? It's going well. I appreciate the views and everyone showing up. How should rules be interpreted? This one has caused the most arguments.
Okay.
I will say that hands down. It's either WWE Raw rules is written, elbow drops and abusive grammatical errors everywhere. Rules are in a cage in which conduct cage matches. I've thrown that in because anyone who picks that usually is the rules lawyer or a troll.
No, they're the rules Nazi.
Or as Anne puts them, the rules Nazi.
Oh man, that's yikes.
I've had three severe rules lawyers in my games in the entire course of my history.
Uh-huh.
They aren't the best players.
Metallic Sunrise, one set of red eyes appears, then flux of them suddenly engulf the darkness alongside growls that grow in dark viciousness. Ooh, that's a cool way to put that. But I tend to be more case by case.
With
With the rules.
I think I usually would land at number 2 there.
Rules
Um,
is written.
yeah.
Yeah, I tend to go case by case. It depends on the situation. But once I make a decision, I try to stay consistent with that decision.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. If you're doing something that's a little fuzzier on the rules, is consistency. Your players need to, again, be able to know what to expect.
And that's what Session Zero is about, is you're explaining things.
Yeah.
And go over as many of the rule changes you want to do with them.
Yeah.
And make sure that everybody's on the same page. What you want to do, how you want to do it. And that's also the same with the style of game you want to run. Like, that was my biggest problem with Wild Island. I tried educating people on the two styles of game it could be, and I had two people that wanted survival, and then I had a bunch of people who wanted exploration. And they could not meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And that caused drama. That caused some heavy drama. Like, good gods, man, that was rough. This question has gotten a lot of laughs, but most of the time people are just like, okay, it's how graphically violent do you want the game?
Yeah.
Some people are like, okay, I don't want graphic violence and all. Like, if I'm running a game with like a lot of younger people, I'll do one, which is mild animated violence. Enemies take damage and fall down with X's over their eyes. Some swords are made of foam rubber. Bullets are Nerf darts.
Sure.
And that's good for kids. But if I'm dealing with adults, I tend to stick around 3.
Yeah, three's I think where I usually live and breathe. For Cthulhu, I'm leaning a little more towards 4.
Yeah.
It's Cthulhu.
I've done 1-5 once. And that is because those guys wanted a superhero, super gory game.
Interesting. That's
Very almost The Boys, but this was like well before The Boys came out.
gotcha.
But that was the kind of like, if I was to give like an example, that's how it felt. And they were not good or bad. So there is that, and they were. Oof. I ended up stopping that game after about 6 sessions
Uh-huh.
because even I was starting to feel uncomfortable with some of the things they were doing in game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay, this has got to stop. And then the last one is, how serious do you want the game? How funny versus serious? And that's also good to know. Like, find out what level of humor you want around your game.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things I like to cover in session 0 is tone. Do we want to be just silly cut-ups? Do we want to just be kind of very, very serious?
Welcome, traveler.
I tend to live somewhere in the middle. The Cthulhu game is going to go a little darker than my usual,
Dark.
but
Metallic Samurai
honestly,
said dark humor. Yeah.
oh yeah. When I pitched the Cthulhu game to my gamers, I had a bunch of people who were interested in playing it straight. It's going to be serious. We're going to obviously we'll cut up around the table out of character, but it's going to be a serious game. But then I had a couple that were like trying to think about comedy concepts, and I'm like, okay, so I've got a group that wants to do this like traditional Cthulhu, and one that wants to do it as dark, just black as hell comedy. And I'm thinking I've got Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, or maybe just Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, because there's a sliding scale of humor in those movies as you go along.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just thinking, yeah, okay, I might be able to work with that.
By the way, Small Hermit, welcome to the tavern. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and have fun. Now, things don't always work, all right, with games and players. I will say that.
Yeah.
You could talk about Session 0 to death, and you could talk it out, and it will always be fine. Enjoy your lurk, shitbird. I got a mom stuff, but I'm going to keep you tapped up, dear. Hey, you do the mom stuff. I understand. I'm a parent, too. And so, for one, if I have enough players who are asking for this, I have a form for requesting a dismissal of a game.
We've done it once.
And it's been done once. Because, like, people just weren't feeling the game. And so I asked, like, what's your name? And it's not a required question. So they can
Right.
leave that blank if they want to remain anonymous. Then I say, shall we drop this game and move on to the next one? And they say yes or no. And then I ask the next question, which is required. I go, are there any improvements that can be made to future games?
Yes.
I feel like that's a needed question that so many people don't ask.
I can't say that I have ever, solicited requests for dismissal, but feedback is so important.
Oh yeah, I ask for feedback almost every game I run. I'm just like, hey, any thoughts, concerns, questions, comments? I mean, come on, hit me with them. Like, don't be afraid. And if you don't want to tell me here in person, message me it. I have no problem. I am not going to take it personally.
Yeah.
And that is the big thing a lot of DMs need to do is when you get feedback,
That you don't like?
don't take it personally. That is so important.
Yeah.
It's a great question. You can always improve on what if you've done wrong and badly. Yeah, you can't improve if no one tells you what you did.
Yeah, the 5e game, we did the vote of dismissal on because we just...
Yeah. The Wild Island game, we actually did the vote of dismissal because we lost 2 players. Everything was just going to shit, and we did that. And then the other one I have, which is request dismissal of a player, which is the player you wish to remove, put your answer in, and then what issues are the reason why this player should be removed. And they can type out their answer. And I did this so that way the person can remain anonymous, and if I get multiple reports on the same person, then I know that's a problematic player.
Yeah.
And that's the next topic we're going to go into is problematic players. Because they exist, and oh boy, are they going to be a thing.
And sometimes the DM needs to grow a pair and kick the player out rather than continuing to suck up to them.
Yeah. I feel called out there.
Because I am. I love you. Fuck.
Yeah, we had my problematic player was she was a good role player, but I let it go on for way too long and she drove away way too many players.
Yeah.
And I should have stepped in sooner. That was my mistake.
I believe I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so there's a YouTuber, Seth Skorkowski, who I watch regularly, and he has some good videos on these topics, talks about the RPG social contract, and dives into some of the psychology that, other people have talked about too. It's hard for nerds like us sometimes to accept that maybe this other nerd needs to go.
Yeah.
Because we grew up kind of on the outside. We found people with similar interests. We bonded with them. We're used to being the people that people want to, tell us to go. And so we have this reluctance to see somebody that's truly toxic or just unmanageable and tell them to GTFO.
Yeah. Welcome, Killer Crunk. Finally, nice to meet you as well. I think I've seen your stream. I think, maybe not. The name seems familiar, but welcome, my friend. Thank you for the hype. But yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, we as nerds have that issue where we don't want to get rid of people because we know what it's like to be ostracized, and we don't want to be that person who excludes others.
Right. And honestly, the other thing that sometimes hits you is that sometimes you're legitimately scared of the person you want to get rid of. Like, this person has a temper. I don't necessarily want to provoke that, but holy crap.
Yeah, with this person, I was more, I'd say, a mixture of I didn't want to, like, get rid of them. How do I put it? I am trying to remember how to word this. My brain is not working right. Like, part of me was like, I wanted to avoid hurting their feelings. So that was one thing.
Sure.
Because I didn't like that idea. But another one was like, I'm really bad with words sometimes. I didn't want to hurt their feelings was one thing. Another thing was I didn't want to. I felt like they had a lot of fingers in a lot of the other players, like control wise.
Sure.
And my concern was they could take enough of the group with them that I would
Yes.
lose the group entirely.
Yes, and that can be a legitimately, scary thing to a GM. If I stand up to this player, am I essentially shooting my entire group in the foot? Am I just done then?
Yeah. Which, for the most part, that's what ended up happening for me. I pretty much lost my entire group, except for like 2 people.
Yeah.
Because like she took her husband, and then one person just never will come back because there's drama. And then I got another guy who basically called us all toxic and sided with her.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 people who just disappeared. No word, no nothing. They just gone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. I mean, I don't know what else I can do at that point other than rebuild from the ashes.
And yeah, that's basically how you have to go about it. There's the old adage that no D&D is better than bad D&D, and at a certain point, you just have to kind of remind yourself, make that your mantra.
Yeah.
Do I really want to keep playing with this person, even if the alternative is, not playing for a while?
Oh, yeah. And the thing of the matter is, you're going to run into that. That's happening outside of groups, too, because it's something that toxicity it is unchecked in, and it grows so point where it's unbearable even to deal with anymore. Yeah, that happens outside of D&D groups. It happens inside D&D groups. It's just unchecked. Yeah. And so what do you do with this toxic player? What do you do with this person who is being like this? And this kind of problematic player, more often than not, is smart enough to know that they're in a group of nerds, and they will abuse that because they know that if they pinprick and attack the right areas, they can stay in the group longer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you've known them a long time. Yeah. So some of the best ways you can deal with them is, one, talk to the other players.
Yes.
Get a consensus of what they think. And talk to them privately. Now, mind you, do this with a grain of common sense. Like, for example, I had my problematic player. Her husband was in our group. Talking to him would have been pointless.
Yeah.
Hey, Ian, how's it going? So, like, talking to him would be pointless. But I did talk to everyone else. Oh, allergies is messing with me. Another thing to do, though, is also, once you get that consensus, try to at least initiate some level of discussion with them about what behaviors you believe are problematic.
Sure.
At least at first. Try to, work things out. But the types of players we're talking about, I guarantee you hit that step and you go further than that. We're talking about beyond that step. The next thing is when you have the type of player who is emotionally manipulative.
Yes.
When you're hitting that, and this is the one I dealt with, I'm not sure the gentleman we're about to discuss is emotionally manipulative. I feel like he's more bullying, and we'll cover that in a minute.
Welcome, traveler.
He's both.
He's a little both, yeah. Killer Kronk, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the tavern. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, have fun, man. Oh, thank you for the hype, my friend. So, if you're dealing with someone who's strictly using emotional manipulation, the first step is recognizing it. noticing it, because that'll help a lot.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have to be firm. It sucks. You can call me Killa if you want. Okay, cool. I'll call you Killa, man. Appreciate. And if you got to be firm, it's gonna suck. It's gonna hurt because they are going to find all of those weak points on you, and they're gonna hit every one, especially if they've known you for a while. And it's gonna be a rough time. I think you agree with me on that one.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of, there's that certain manipulative personality that basically every relationship, every interaction is transactional. And so they're looking for ways to win, relationships, win friendships, which is just so alien to most normal people's thinking that they're not prepared for it. But once you start to recognize that in a person, you can say, "Oh, I need to be on my guard. They're going to try and manipulate the situation to where I look like the bad guy." They're sitting at the end of the table, stabbing the player next to them with a fork repeatedly, and they're going to try and make it so that, well, you said we could use utensils whenever we wanted.
Yeah, it's just like, not on other people, man. But yeah, that is the problem. So you're gonna have to be firm. It's gonna suck. Having others on your side helps.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you're gonna have to be the one to put your foot down and say no, especially if you're the DM. If you're not the DM and the problematic player has I want to say control over your DM, it might be wise to mention it to the DM.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, you may need to cut your losses.
Absolutely. And you never... I never want to walk away from a game without telling someone, hey, I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
Can we do something about it? But there are situations where it's like, oh, this is too far gone. There's no talking around this, and you just kind of ghost the game. You hate to do it, but sometimes it is necessary.
And then you also got to take into account, you got to try your best to... Oh. That's why it wasn't working. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I'm trying to update all my packs. But the other fun thing that you may run into, especially with a certain toxic style player, and this is the other male toxic one, not the one you dealt with, but the one I had to deal with, they may poison the well in the community.
Oh, yes.
And I've dealt with that. Because what they did was, this gentleman poisoned the well for my wife, and used that poisoning of the well for her to also affect me.
Yep.
And I had a very negative gaming reputation where I live for a while. And I still do. I noticed. Like, on occasion when I go to, like, our local gaming store, the Four Horsemen, I've run into person that, like, when I introduce myself and I say my name, they react.
Okay.
Like, they don't tell me, like, oh, get the hell out or something, but they have that, like, shocked and kind of taken aback reaction.
Like, oh, you're that guy.
Yeah, you're that guy. That kind of reaction. And so I've had to deal with that. And that's come from primarily one male person and, two male people. One is Anne's former significant other, and another was a gentleman who was in our house for gaming. And he didn't last long because we kept telling him he had to build his own characters.
Yeah.
And his boyfriend kept doing it for him.
Yeah.
So I told him, okay, this is just not working. I'm sorry. Like, you don't know what's on your own character sheet, so this is not working.
Yep.
and so I had to let him go. And he also didn't appreciate like the few times where I tried to go to like Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society where I suddenly had to leave because of kids. So yeah, my wife was having postpartum depression issues, and the kids are ADHD with mental disorders. So combine that, and it's not a fun time.
No.
We didn't know about the second part of that.
Yeah, we didn't know about really either of them very well until later on. Like, we got diagnoses and stuff later on. So,
Yeah.
that helps. But, so, between those two things, I had a semi-negative reputation.
Right.
Now, there have been some people who have stood up for me and pointed out that that's a BS reputation. I'm not sure if you've ever encountered it.
I mean, most of the people that we know in common, I think, have a generally positive impression of you.
Yeah. I know Dalton has had to, look at people and go, no, he's not like that. That's not accurate.
Yeah.
So I know he's dealt with that on a couple of times. So it is what it is. But that is dealing with a negative reputation. That takes a little bit more work. It depends on how well known the other person is versus how well known you are. But it's not impossible to overcome. And that's something I do want to make sure everyone knows. Yeah, it sometimes seems like an insurmountable task, especially someone who has social issues. And while it seems like I'm decent at social, I'm not good at reading social cues. And that has been a detriment to me sometimes. I'll fully admit that. But it can be overcome. Now, the next person we're talking about did not only mental manipulation, he did bullying. Just straight up, like, I wouldn't say like physical beat you against the wall bullying, but he did use his physical presence to bully.
I mean, if you're talking about the person I think, then yes. Obviously, we're not going to name him, but yeah, he was an actual domestic abuser.
Yeah, that is true. I'm just saying he didn't bully anybody at the games.
He did not. Yeah, you're right. He didn't punch anybody at the gaming table or anything like that.
Yeah, that is where I'm drawing that line right there. He didn't punch anybody at the gaming table. He punched them outside the gaming table,
Yes.
which is still bad.
Oh yeah.
That is still really bad, and I will condemn that behavior. Like, domestic abuse, not acceptable. But in this case, his bullying actions at the gaming table weren't physical in sense. When I say physical, he didn't punch or hit anyone at the gaming table. He used his larger presence to make everybody cower to him.
Yes. More the implied threat of I could hurt you if I want you to, rather than an actual, drawing back of a fist.
Right. This is the type of player you really don't want at your table.
No.
And this person, by the way, will flip on a switch.
Mm-hmm.
All right? They will seem super friendly. They'll seem very cool, very chill, until something happens where they're not.
Yeah.
And it is a giant 180. Like, good gods. It is horrifying to see.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people can just... Yeah, it's night and day.
It's almost like they have a split personality.
Yeah. In the case of the specific person that we're talking about, I suspect, and this is armchair psychology, I do not offer this as an actual diagnosis, but I do suspect unmedicated bipolar disorder.
That wouldn't shock me. But in this instance, like, the person who was domestically abusing happened to also be in my game. And now, like, when I think back on how that game played and how things were going, I can see the signs of it.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Yep.
But as a DM, it helps if you pay attention to your players' behaviors. Don't just look at what their characters are doing. Don't look at how they're, what they're saying they're doing. Look at how they're behaving around the table. Like how their body language moves, how other people react to that body language. Because that is important. Because especially if you have a couple there, if one side of that couple is acting very forward, very aggressively, and the other one is quickly moving away from them, like almost like a fear response, that is a good sign to pay attention.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the general GM skill sets that people need to have is reading people, and it's not just for context of problem players. Sometimes you can tell when one of your players is uncomfortable with something that's going on in the game, or you can tell if somebody's got an idea but they're waiting till everybody else stops talking to speak up with it, and you can kind of say, "Hey, what do you have to say?" and kind of give them the spotlight so they have a chance to get that idea out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, always kind of pay attention to how your players' body languages are, where they're looking, just to make sure that everybody's enjoying themselves.
Yeah. And keep an eye on also, and I will say this, tech. How they use the technology at the table also would be indicative of how their mental state is. Because if their face is strictly in their phone or in their laptop, it means one of two things. It either they're bored and they just are not into your game, which does happen.
Yeah.
Or their mental state is not there and they're having something wrong and they can't handle the situation they're in.
Yeah.
And they need to escape.
Yep. I was going to say it can be an escape.
Yep. Whether that's a situation that's going on in game or with another player at the table. Either one is just as viable. And so as a DM, don't be afraid to take your players aside if you see something that concerns you, and be like, "Hey, can I talk to you a moment? I got a few questions about your characters. Just let me take you aside privately." And like take them to a room quietly and ask them questions. If they're willing to answer them.
Sure.
Like, don't force it, but at least probe. You know what I mean? Like, ask them probing questions, see if they're willing to answer, and be there to help them and listen, because that's important. Oh, I accidentally clicked on something. The other thing you gotta worry about, especially with that kind of behavior, is harassment. In-game.
Yes.
Oh my God, harassment. Good gods. And harassment can come in multiple ways. It can be emotional harassment. It can be physical harassment. It could be sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I've seen all three.
I've been fortunate. I don't think I've actually seen sexual harassment at my table.
I have unfortunately have. I had a player who decided that women were less than people and made comments as such.
He was told he was not allowed back in my house.
Yeah, he was told he wasn't allowed back at the apartment. He didn't appreciate that, and we started having game in other apartments. And that's one example of sexual harassment I've seen at a table, and that was the more implicit sexual harassment, like the verbal.
Yeah.
And I've had an explicit version happen in front of me on my tables. And that was, I want to say, shortly after high school. I was running a game at culinary school. We had a gentleman who just was not taking no for an answer. In-game, he was trying to basically get it on with our our friend who was into women. She was only into women.
Right.
And she had zero interest in game or out of game in men. And this guy just didn't care for that. He's like, nope, no, you. He goes, you just haven't met the right guy, essentially. Oh yes,
that line.
That line. Oh, trust me.
That did not go over well.
He fully believed that his dick could turn any woman straight. And I just like when that line came out of his mouth, right? What the whole my junk can turn any woman straight, because he actually said that out loud to me once. I just put my hand in my head in my hands and just shook my head, almost like what I'm doing now, but similar. And I'm just like I'm looking at like my drink at the time, because I was drinking alcohol at the time, and I looked at it and I'm like, there's not enough booze in this cup to deal with this fucking conversation. Like, I seriously did not fucking have enough alcohol that night to deal with that asshole. But like, I told him, like, and that was like shortly after he was in the game, and so I was like, okay, you cannot have that kind of conversation and make those kind of statements at my game. Just chill the fuck out.
Sure.
And he was like, okay, yeah, trust me, man. I'll keep it on the down low. No problem.
5 minutes later.
Yeah, next session. No, he did not. Oh, he did not. How do I put this? Yeah.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Yeah, there we go. So, hey, from Smurf Village, what have you been up to? We are talking about D&D, Pathfinder, all tabletop stuff. We're educating people on Session 0, problematic players, harassment at the table. Basically, how to make your game better when dealing with the fun issue of bad people at your table.
Yeah.
And all that jazz. So, what got him removed from the table, and this was the fun time, I had 2 friends in culinary school, all right? We had Chris, who was a tall, lanky, kind of African-American guy. And the reason why I say this is because I'm bringing this up for something that came out of this guy's mouth later, okay?
Okay, I see where you're going. Yep.
Oh, yeah, you know exactly where I'm going. And then we had Adam Busby, or Busby for short, we called him. And he was from Bermuda. All right? Skin tone and all. All right?
Okay.
By the way, the story of me and Busby meeting was hilarious. We had a mutual partner, romantic partner, that neither of us knew each other had.
Okay.
At the same time. She did not decide to share that information with either of us. Oh, yeah. That was fun. But we ended up becoming good friends because of it.
Yeah.
We're just like, yeah, no.
One of 2 things happens in that situation. You either attempt to murder each other, or you get along.
Yep. So me and Busby became like really good friends. We ended up becoming roommates. This was before we became roommates, so. Anyway, so they're at my table, right? Busby is built. All right? Like a brick shithouse, man. All right, so I bring this up. And then we had our lesbian friend, which I will not mention her name because she has asked me several times never to mention her name when I tell this story.
Fair enough.
And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I won't do it. So, I will refer to the gentleman in question that was problematic as now Captain Douchebag.
Oh, shit.
No, not dipshit. That is the gentleman who was our former
Welcome, traveler.
landlord.
Oh, yeah, that was...
That's dipshit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mashed, for joining the tavern. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and have fun. So Captain Dipshit there. Sorry, Captain Douchebag.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sorry.
Don't mix them up now.
God damn it, I was mixing them up in my head. Captain Douchebag. How's it going? It's going great, man. We're telling a wonderful story about something that happened at one of my games. Oh. So Captain Douchebag, we're having a game, and he was hitting on her character. Now, she was playing, I want to say it was a ranger. Because I remember she was an elf that used a bow.
Okay.
And it was 3-5. And she had a lot of archery combat feats.
Sure.
And she had tracking, which made me think she was a ranger. Alright, so she was playing a ranger. Dude was playing a fighter. Alright, and he went duelist. Like, he wanted to be the suave, debonair duelist.
Okay.
Alright. At one point, he kept hitting on her and hitting on her and hitting on her, trying to use his rolls to force her to do something in game. And I made a rule at my table. It's like, you can roll, but you can't force anyone. Just the rolls determine how good it sounds.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily make someone want to do it.
Right.
So he could talk himself up and sound like the most amazing man on the planet, but if she's not into it, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
And he was getting more frustrated. And eventually she got up because she was getting frustrated, and she's like, I'm heading into the kitchen. I'm grabbing a drink, and which was not an alcoholic drink at this point. I think it was like a Coke or something. Yeah. The drink is not important. So she gets up to go get a drink, and he reaches around as she's passing him, and he slaps her ass.
Oh boy.
And tells her, calls her, I believe, Sweet Cheeks or something similar, and says, "Go, can you grab me a drink too?"
Oh boy.
And at this point, she just hauls around and goes to slap him, and then she stops, and she's just like, "Nope, I'm not gonna hit him. I'm not gonna hit him. Not my house." And she goes into the kitchen, and as she turns around to leave, Adam goes, "Well, technically it's my house, so I'll fucking hit him." And Busby just punches the dude. Like, haymakers him. I swear to fuck. And just knocks this guy out of his fucking chair. Like, Busby just goes, I'll fucking do it. Boom! I'm sitting here going, fuck!
Nice.
Don't piss off the big man.
And immediately, Chris, who is his best friend, Adam and Chris are like the two dudes that they don't even have to talk to communicate.
They look at each other.
They just know what each other are thinking. I swear to the gods.
Yeah.
It's like they have one brain or something that
They're
just
completely
between the two of them.
They're like twins.
It's almost like a mind flare split their brains with them.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris immediately gets up, and as this guy goes to get up, Chris just gets up behind him, puts his arms behind his head, and just slams him into the floor. I remember this clearly because it's the only time violence has ever happened at one of my games.
Yeah.
And it's just, I picture it so fucking clearly.
Yeah, I imagine it would stick with you.
Like, oh my god. And so him and Busby just jump on him, they pick him up, and he drops the N-bomb.
Uh-huh.
In which case, Busby goes, if I wouldn't, it's like, I don't want to go to jail, but if I didn't care about that, I would honestly break your kneecaps right now. But on second thought, we're just throwing your ass out of my home, because we were always at Busby's house, because it was bigger.
Yep.
He had a bigger apartment. So Busby takes him outside, takes him to the way his apartment is, and kicks him down a flight and a half of stairs. Like, fuck off! Like, yeet!
My asshole.
It's like, do I have the yeet sound? I think I do.
I'm pretty sure you have the yeet sound effect.
I thought I did. Okay, someone just messaging me. Yeah, I thought I had the yeet. Oh, there it is. Yeet! There it is. Yeet! There he goes. Dude leaves, and we never see him again other than classes, because he was in the same culinary classes as us.
Right.
And we told the chef, it's like, that dude ain't allowed near us, and he's definitely not allowed near the one girl.
Right.
And luckily, she didn't have a lot of similar classes with him. But, god damn, that was brutal. And I was like, that is the most violent and heinous example of sexual harassment at one of my games.
Yeah, wow. I don't even know how I'd handle something like that.
I just stood there in shock. I didn't handle it. I just was like, I don't know how to fucking deal with this because I was the DM. And I'm like, fuck? And, like, in which case, like, Busby and Chris came back in. We all kind of chilled out. And they're like, okay, let's just kind of chill game for today. And let's just play some fucking Xbox. And hang out for tonight. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. Let me just write down the notes of what happened today other than the, massive amounts of violence. And we'll pick this up next week. And
Yeah.
that's where my brain went. I was just like, I can't. I can't deal with this shit. Small Herm is like epic story fam. I'm like, yeah, I was really tempted to post this one day, but like I can't post her name, and I
Right.
never wanted to get back that if someone could figure out who she was.
Right.
So like I don't write it down.
Yeah.
So there is that. It's just like, oh, it's not a story I tell often, but it is craziness.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I've heard this one, so...
Yeah, I try to keep it close to the chest, but it's apropos for our subject.
Yeah, I've only been around, like, semi-violent outbreaks once, and honestly... it's little stuff like I had a player get annoyed with me for doing too many puns, so she chucked a player's handbook at me.
Oh God! Like, here's the book. Fuck you. God damn.
But
Oh my God.
just silly stuff like that, not an actual beat down.
The most violence I've ever had at me, other than emotional or verbal violence, the most physical violence I had was like people who picked up like stuffed animals from around the room and just chucked it at me.
Yep.
Or like during the WOD game that Varen was in, we had Nerf guns. And so I occasionally got shot by both Varen and Anne.
Yep.
But I gave it back in return because they dared me that I couldn't do something I normally could do, which was ricochet shots off the ceilings we had there, because they were all those weird angle ceilings.
Sure.
And I was like, I guarantee, because Varen had one of those low-cut shirts, and I'm like, I guarantee you I could put every round on your shirt.
Yeah.
And it was like a little 6-shooter gun, and I was just like, blop, 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 and I did every single one, and they just looked at me and was like, it's simple geometry.
Yeah.
And she got a laugh out of it. But the gentleman we both have been talking about, which is, dipshit, didn't take kindly to that.
No, I imagine not.
Yeah, oh. He took a game I was running with WOD that had 12 players starting out, and I knew people were going to drop.
Yeah.
That's why I started with 12. And I was like, I know that this game may not be for all of you, so if you want to leave, that's okay. I'm not going to get hurt. So I started with 12, and he took it down to 3.
Yep.
In 2 months.
That's the power of the dipshit.
That is the power of the dipshit. Like, god damn. He ran off that many people that quickly. And the only reason why I had 3 was because everybody lived in that same building.
Yep.
And it was just like, god damn. But we also had, like, the worst roommate in that building, too. Who, good lord, that guy did stupid. And he tried playing some interesting characters, but they never worked out.
Trying to remember if I met the roommate, because I don't think I got in your gaming circle until after that game.
Yeah, you never met him, but he was always super quiet, always in his room. And he left dirty pots and pans in my kitchen.
Of course.
All the time. I was like, that sucks. Oh, at some point with all these people, I should tell the story of the saga of Karen. I refer to it now as the Saga of Karen. You've heard this because you experienced me going through it. Candid.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if not by that name, maybe.
Oh god, Small Hearts Hermit's like, do it. All right. So we talked about an emotional manipulating person. All right. So let this be a lesson to those who are having this type of person in your game. All right. So Karen had her husband Nate in the game. All right. I used a random name generator, okay? When I originally wrote this. So that's why I got Karen and Nate. I didn't choose the name Karen. The damn generator gave me it. Like, it knew what I needed.
Fair enough.
I was like, screw it, let's go with it. So, we are playing multiple games. What we start with at first, a game called To Make a King, which is this big epic storyline where the continent they're on is in a civil war. And there are multiple continents involved. Hey, man, I'm going to head out, enjoy the rest of your stream, have a wonderful night. Hey, thanks, Shiny. I hope you have a great night, too. So, they are all playing kind of like mercenaries,
Sure.
and they incorporate several characters. Now, Karen is playing a sylph druid, which a sylph is kind of like an air spirit-blooded person.
Yeah.
And druids are people who are one with nature and they cast spells. Now, Nate doesn't show up until much later in the story, and he is not in To Make a King. All right. Then we have, I'm going to call him Jason. He had a different name. I remember that. Jason was Karen's friend who ended up leaving the game because he just didn't want drama anymore. He doesn't even talk to her anymore.
Okay.
Like, he got sick of the friggin' bullshit. He was playing not an artificer, he was playing an alchemist. And game one, and this is how cool, like, Jason was. He shoved a bomb in a wolf's mouth. Game one. Or a warg's mouth. Sorry, not a wolf. A warg's mouth. Because it kept knocking him over. He shoved it in its mouth. And didn't pull out his hand in time and lost his hand. He didn't get angry. He took it on as a stump of pride. And role-played it. And he hated the nickname, though, he got for his character, though. Which was Stumpy.
Yes.
But we had fun with it. Like, he didn't, like, get really angry. His character got angry.
Yeah, of course.
But he was just like, whatever, I'm Stumpy. Got it. Let's just go. So we continue on with the game. Now, my wife, Anne, is playing a character named Liana. Her tribe got wiped out at one point, like severely. And she has a few refugees with her, and they're trying to find a place to live. And her siblings.
Right.
Eventually, one of her siblings comes to adventure with her, who is an artificer. Artificers are people who can make magical items. That's their shtick.
Broken bullshit if you build them right.
Yeah, they're complete broken bullshit if you build them right. And she is playing a ranger. Alright? So, the party continues, and Liana ends up marrying one of the leaders of one of the countries involved in this giant cluster screw of these countries on the continent. Meanwhile, the druid, Karen's druid, and the artificer, Jason's artificer, got together, and they built an airship. Now, Karen built the airship with all of her money, and she did most of the planning and stuff. But they grabbed the artificer to help make the building faster.
Right.
So they used that to speed up the process. So a process that would normally take 6 to 7 months, they completed in like 3. Alright, and they had one of the first airships on the continent. They made it very much a dirigible. So it has like a big hot air balloon above and a like sailing vessel below, and that's kind of how they set it up. And they were using biofuel to run it because they wanted to keep it nature friendly. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And I warned them when they built this thing, it's like, if you bring this thing into combat, you're going to attract attention with it, and it's going to be one, shot at, and two, people are going to want to copy it. Like, I bring that up.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, because it makes sense. If you see the enemy suddenly have flying ships, you're going to be like, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Make that happen. All right. So for the longest time, they just use it as a travel thing, and they park it outside cities, and then they travel outside the city to do their business, and then go back to the airship. Eventually, they fight an orc horde.
We didn't have to, but we thought we'd help by thinning the numbers.
Yeah, they didn't have to, but they wanted to help, and so they flew over the orc horde, raining arrows and fireballs from the ship.
Like you do.
And they did this for a couple of days as they were flying back to the front lines of their allies.
Leading the horde to the front line.
Right? So now their allies are seeing the flying ship for more than just travel.
Yep.
They're seeing that it could be a weapons platform. And so that draws the attention of Liana's husband, who's like, hey, can we build airships that do combat?
I wasn't married to him yet.
Yeah, she wasn't married to him yet, but later on she will be. And that's brought up and it started being worked on. Well, at one point, a mercenary squad takes out the airship. It makes it crash by sending an anvil through the balloon. They conjure an anvil in the sky, and it goes through the balloon, and it causes it to deflate and the airship to go down.
Yeah.
And then they attack the ship while it's on the ground. This upsets Karen and annoys Jason.
Sure.
And they're like, well, shit, this is kind of BS that they planned this and da-da-da. It's like, how do they know how to attack an airship? And I'm like, it's a giant cloth balloon.
Yeah.
It's not hard to figure out. Not to mention, I warned you guys that if you did the attacks with it, people would notice it. And the enemy had noticed it. Because it kept parking outside major cities, and their allies were talking about utilizing their own version of it. So the mercenaries went after them. So they decided, we need to upgrade this airship to make it combat worthy. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So I take Karen, I pull her aside, and I bring in our mutual friend, Mike.
Uh-huh.
Mike is the type of guy that, while I know D&D fairly well, and I would say CandidGamera knows it fairly well as well,
Yeah.
we have our specialties. I'll say that's fair. Like, you are really good with rogues and social rogues.
I do love a liar.
Yep. Where I'm really good with thief rogues, and I'm also good with melee combatants. Like, I know how to build a good melee combatant if I need to.
Huh?
I've had a lot of practice with it. Mike, on the other hand, is our magic user specialist. Like, good God, if you ever have a question about magic in D&D and Pathfinder, he is the person to go to. Now, don't ask him how to build a melee character, because he'll look at you like you've grown a second head.
Huh.
And I love the guy to death. He's a great dude, but, like, he cannot do a melee character. I've seen him try once, and he hated it.
Yeah.
So, I bring Mike into the conversation, and I tell him, it's like, Karen has some questions on how to build an airship to make it combat worthy. I figured you're the person to ask because you know the most about this. And Mike goes, okay. And he throws down the first idea, which is honestly one of the better ideas, at least in, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use the word canon. But you know what I'm talking about, like verified sources?
Yeah.
Like what is written in D&D sources, in Pathfinder
Right.
sources. And that is Eberron. In Eberron, you can take an elemental creature, put it in a crystal, and power your airship.
Yeah.
And it flies. You either use an air elemental or a fire elemental to do it. If you use a water elemental, you get a submersible. Essentially. Which is
Right.
cool. And if you use an earth elemental, you get a vehicle that can burrow. Which is also cool.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. But he points this out to Karen and says, these are your two options. They work fairly well. And Karen goes, that's slavery. And then Mike replies, well, yes, if you just summon an elemental, bind it, and then shove it into a crystal, yeah, that could be slavery. You're not asking for its opinion. You're not asking for permission. You're enslaving the creature. Makes sense. But if you summon the creature, you talk to it, make a deal with it, have it sign a contract with you, and you make that contract equal and, equitable for both sides, that's not slavery at that point. It's a job. It's an employment.
Yeah.
Especially if you hire more than one elemental, so that way you can give the elements a break.
Sure.
And Karen's reply was, and I'm quoting from, Rick and Morty as well, because that's what she did, that's just slavery with extra steps.
Which is, I mean, if you want to view the exchange of money for labor as slavery, then there literally cannot be any kind of exchange of anything, because you buying an apple and paying for it is robbery.
Yeah. That's kind of like the mindset. I was just like, what? So I got confused, Mike got confused, and we're both sitting there going, no, that's not how that works. That's a business contract. It's employment. Especially, and we tried explaining it to her. She eventually got pissed off and disconnected from the call.
Yep.
All right? She GTFO'd. And this was not talked about for a couple months. A couple weeks. During this time, our mutual friend, Mark, showed a picture of a weird gun that was designed back in the day. It's a revolver with, spinning barrels, inside spinning barrels, and all kinds of weird shit. And Karen brought up this for the other game we were playing at the time, which was called the pirate game or the aquatic game, where she was playing a gunslinger. And she asked if she could have the gun. And I'm like, yes, but you have to do some research and development. Here are my rules for research and development, which, by the way, are third party. There are no research and development rules in Pathfinder.
Right.
She then tells me I am mansplaining the rules to her, and that she had already looked up the rules and they were the same rules.
I mean, you're the GM. You get to decide what third-party rules apply to your game.
Yeah. But there was the accusation that I was mansplaining.
Right.
And that was fun. I basically said, no, this is just the rules I want to use. We happen to agree on, which is good. But you have to do research and development, so on and so forth. And I tried talking it out. Eventually, she just said, screw it, I don't want it. Don't bother. And it was dropped.
Yep.
Come several weeks later, I'd say actually a week later, I get the full list from between me, Mike, and Dalton. We work out a list of the 6 options she could do to build her airship to make it combat ready. Some of them are more horrifying than others. Like burning souls. So I present these on Discord. She immediately loses it on me, saying, how dare I bring this up again? We had finished the discussion and the decision had been made. And I was like, you left the conversation in the middle of the conversation. There was nothing decided. what the heck? And I thought it was a shared airship at the time, and I was wrong, and I admitted that. I was like, yeah, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I thought this was shared between you and the alchemist. My apologies. That happens. It was a misunderstanding. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. She loses it and refuses to come to game for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I you're well past the point where I would have booted her ass, but
Yeah.
At this point, we asked you, and I looked at you and said, just kick her.
Yeah, Anne is telling me to kick her at this point. And
I
I'm like,
honestly, I think you actually talked to me about the situation at the time, and I was like, yeah, I think you might just need to let her go.
yeah. But it took me, no, because it was the next part that I think I asked you.
Okay.
Because it was something else that triggered that. Because, yeah, it was the next part. I remember that. Because at this point, I had to apologize to her. And I remember I told that to you when I told you this story first.
Gotcha.
So in order to get her back into the game, I had to apologize to her to get her to come back to game. Which was, like, insane.
Right.
Fast forward a couple more, like a month or two, or it was like maybe 3 months. She starts talking to me again, complaining that I am not letting her have any cool shit. And I'm sitting here going...
After my artificer starts figuring out how to build their own airship.
Yeah, after the artificer, by the way, figures out how to build a better version of an airship.
Yep.
And she just loses it. She's like, nope, this is not acceptable. She shouldn't be able to do this. I'm like, Artificer was left alone on the airship for long periods of time. She's been repairing the ship ever since then. She built a better design. And it was one of the better designs, was literally one of the options that was provided to Karen.
Yeah.
And it was, and it wasn't that bad. And it was just like, and that the leader of one of the countries very much wanted the airship design. And she's like, I have a proprietary right to airships. They are my design and my design only. No one else is allowed to have airships.
That doesn't work that way.
And I looked at her, looked at Discord and I was like, that's not how that works in this society. I mean, like, you can claim you have proprietary rights all you like. If someone doesn't care about what you're saying, they're going to build it anyway. I mean, legal proprietary rights only matter if someone cares about your laws.
Right, and there's not like most medieval era countries or even Renaissance era countries didn't have, patent laws.
Nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody cared. So she lost it at that point. Again, and she also said I wouldn't allow her to have cool shit of her own. I was letting all the other players have cool shit. And then she dropped that I was being sexist. Zhao Hona, I'm heading out to other Smurfs. Have a good stream, guys. Hey, you have a great stream, too. Not stream, night. Damn, brain. You have a great night. God, my brain doesn't help. So at this point, this is when I tell you the story.
Okay.
I catch you up, and you're like, yeah, just drop her. I believe it.
All of us who have...
Welcome, traveler.
Yep, thank you, Zhao Hun Haha. Welcome to the tavern. Grab yourself a mug of ale, pull up a chair, and have a great night. So at this point, I keep her around for a little bit longer. In this case, I think it was like, 6 more months, I think?
That's a while.
Yeah, it's a while. I think I keep her around for 6 more months. The King game ends, and we start, I'm trying to remember, Wild Island. We start Wild Island, and she is the one that focuses on the survival where everybody else doesn't.
Right.
And that pisses her off. And we also have the Friday game, which she was in. And this is what causes the final straw to be broken. And that was, she was suplexing people in the Friday game for fun. And everybody was having a laugh with it.
Right.
She never suplexed her husband, because he was playing a wizard, and we always joked that would kill the wizard.
Right.
And at this point, we're all getting tired and we're all getting annoyed with her friggin' shit. But she kept manipulating the situation to where nobody really wanted her gone or wanted to pull the trigger to make her gone,
Right.
excluding Anne. Anne was the only one who was like, let's pull the damn trigger, and nobody else wanted to do it, and that wasn't enough to get her gone in my voting system.
I saw her behavior
Right.
for what it was.
Yeah. So one of the characters, who is unfortunately one of the players who's left and disappeared, he had his character grab her and suplex her back, or try to.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, this is all in good fun and stuff like that. She wakes up when he fails and punches him for damage. Not like, hey, ha, funny. Here you go. Here's a slight, tap on the shoulder.
Slap for being...
Yeah, or here's a slap for being stupid. No, she straight up goes for real damage. And this guy's playing a shifter who was built toward damage reduction.
Uh-huh.
So she punches him, and she's a monk. She punches him and does 3 damage. Now, there was a little bit of disagreement about how much damage was actually dealt. And so me and the shifter talked about it for a bit. We didn't argue. We were just more like, are you sure about how that ability works? Are you sure that's how that works? And we were bouncing back and forth for about 3 to maybe 5 minutes. Somewhere in that range. At this point, she gets super pissed off. All right?
She's literally going up against something that she can't convert.
And she disconnects from Discord. And her husband claims it's computer issues.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay. And I ask him, can you roll her perception check for her shift at night? Because they're camping. And everybody's to take a shift and so on and so forth.
Actually have a base.
Um,
Dealing with a bunch of
and so he was like, at first goes, yeah, I could totally do that. And then in the background, I hear her yell, no! And I'm like, okay. And suddenly he changes to, no, I can't do that. I can't mess with her character. That wouldn't be right. And I'm like, okay, let's just skip her shift and move on to the next shift so that way we can keep game going. Once again, a very loud no. And I'm like sitting there going,
She shut down our game for her piss.
she shut down our game that night to throw a temper tantrum. That's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
And it killed game about an hour and a half after it started.
So we still had at least an hour, if not.
Yeah, we had another hour and a half at least, possibly 2.
Yeah.
And she just killed it.
Because she was being Madam Pissy Pants.
Yeah.
I honestly, when you made the second suggestion of just skipping her turn and you heard the no in the background, I would have pretended not to hear it and just gone on.
Yeah. Well, no, at that point, her husband leaves the game, and then our Blood Rager, who was one of her friends, but also kind of sort of our friend, leaves the game too. And it just leaves me with just me, Anne, and Mark.
Yep.
And that's 2 players and a DM, which is not enough to run the game. My rule is I have to have 3 players. So, game had to end there. So, with that being said,
No, the other
we-
guy,
we-
there was a third player, but the Slope was part of that.
yeah, Sloke. Yeah, Sloke had to leave.
3 of us.
Yeah, Sloke left because he was just like, I'm done with this.
Yep.
And then Saturday rolls around. Now, they showed up to Saturday game. Everything seemed to be going okay. I was expecting it fully to be like, she wouldn't show up for multiple weeks. We were going to have to go through this whole fucking song and dance again. No, she showed up the game. And we started playing Wild Island, because it was the Wild Island week. And other players wanted to go explore again. And she wanted to stay at base and focus on survival, which no one else wanted to do.
Yep.
So during the night when they encamped at their base, she had her character and her husband character pick up their stuff while they were on watch together and leave. Leaving the party without anybody on watch, asleep.
Yep.
In a
And-
dangerous area.
and in a dangerous area, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we quit your game. Have a nice day. Fuck off." Like they said, "Have a nice day," and then essentially, "Fuck you."
Uh-huh.
And
This was this an in-person game?
no, this was the online game.
Okay.
This was on Roll20, but they were on Discord.
Yeah.
And so they typed it out because they didn't vocally say this.
Sure.
They just vanished.
They just vanished. They typed out their goodbyes, and then just vanished. They refused to talk on Discord after that.
They
Like
already disconnected from Discord.
they disconnected from Discord. They left the Roll20 and all that jazz, and then left it at that. It wasn't until months later she demoted me from Discord admin on her free company because like I was maintaining their Discord.
Yep.
And she's like, "Oh, you're not doing anything, so therefore I demoted you." And I'm like, "Because you're on all the time. But you have no job. Like, I can't fix anything if there's nothing to fix when you're literally on 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to do." So she's like, "Well, since you're not doing anything, I demoted you." I'm like, "Okay." And then I held her to the same standard. She used to be a mod here on my Twitch and a mod on my Discord. I removed both because she never showed up to do her mod job. And so I removed her both. She then left the Discord with a whole like peace sign announcing her departure. And then I was blocked on every Discord she had the power to block me on. And banning
I'm
me.
blocked on a few because other people were like, no.
Yeah, there were a couple of Discords where she had like admin powers, but she wasn't the owner, and the owner came in and unblocked me.
Yeah.
So that is the epic saga of Karen. That took a while to get into, but it is a long, heinous story. And she caused 2 players to leave, her and her husband, and caused another player to leave because he didn't want to deal with drama anymore.
Well, but she caused drama in a game she wasn't even part of anymore.
Yeah.
When we told her she wasn't allowed back.
Yeah, when we told her she wasn't allowed back in any game, she caused drama in our Sunday Rise of the Rune Lords game.
How'd she manage that?
We were about to end Rise of the Rune Lords.
We're in the process of ending.
Like we're in the end game. Like we're in the final room now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about to end a game, you know how we do things. We always announce, "Hey, we're about to end a game soon. Let's vote on what game we're going to do."
So the DM has a chance to prep. Like
So-
2-3 months out.
Yeah, so the storyteller, the GM, has a time to prep their game.
Yeah.
And so we announced that, and we began voting. She suddenly showed up out of nowhere, because she was in the Discord, because she used to be part of the game, and voted, and said, "I can't wait for the next game." This was after months of not showing up to Rune Lords. Like, almost a full year.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there going,
There.
really? And so I messaged everybody else in the group, aside from her friend, who she brought into the game. And I'm like, "Do you really want her back in the game?" Anne said, "Fuck no."
I said, "You dare, I leave."
Yeah, she pretty much said, "If she comes back, I'm leaving." I didn't really have the strong desire to have her back in the game, because I was the GM. I was the one who got voted in for the next game. But I tried to let all my players have a say. And Mark and Alex both had the opinion of, we rather not have the drama, but we don't want to say no. Which I took that as either a absentee vote, essentially, or a damn fly, or a no vote.
Right.
Is like leaning towards no. So I informed her, like, "Hey, I talked to the other players. We're not comfortable having you in game,
Given the
Give-
past.
given your past actions. So please,
Sorry, but no.
sorry, but you're not welcome in our next game. Like, we wish you the best of luck with whatever games you find.
Yeah.
You know, best of luck to you."
It's not going
Yeah. She immediately left Mark's Discord at that point, and then her friend who was in our games, who was playing a character named Wick, left our games. He made a little post saying, like, you're all fucking children, you're all fucking toxic, yeah, you know, to do this kind of bullshit behavior, yada, 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 and then left. And in the process of leaving Roll20, he went to his character sheets and erased them all.
Yeah.
And that is just bullshit. Because he took a lot of money with him in game. Because our characters did invest a lot of money into his character. Because he was one of the upfront fighters.
Right.
Mark did the best he could to give us that money back.
Yeah, Mark did the best he could to give us the money back, but he didn't have an exact idea how much money the guy had. And it was just bad.
Yeah.
And she caused literally drama in games she wasn't in. That's insane. So
Never allowed back in any of our games.
let this be a lesson to anybody who heard this story, or if you just got in and you're hearing it. Keep an eye out for players who are emotionally manipulative. They will work their way into your group. They will start finding weaknesses and ways to manipulate your players, your DM if you're not the DM, and their goal is to control the group.
And when somebody puts a stop to it, they get
Yeah,
pissed.
there can be a lot of reasons behind something like that, but it sounds like, you know, she basically wanted the spotlight, the control, and any decision that did not go her way was just going to be screamed at until somebody gave in.
Or ignored. Like she was gonna literally grind the game to a halt.
Yep.
Because she purposely would do things in game to make it so her character had to be in everyone's story.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it impossible to like work around that. It got so bad with a lot of the games she was in that I made copies of her and her husband and everyone's character sheets in game.
Uh-huh.
Like, just so that way, if they did essentially what Wick did,
Yep.
I would still have a copy.
The power of flounce.
Yeah. And with online games, I still do that. If
Yeah.
I know I have a problematic player, or I suspect a problematic player, I will start copying character sheets, especially if they have access to more than one. Because she had access to everyone's character sheets.
Yeah. I honestly prefer to have copies, backup copies of character sheets anyway, just in case somebody forgets one. I've got a couple of players who are ADHD, and you know they don't always remember certain details. So it's good to have those backups, even if you don't have a problematic player per se.
Oh yeah, they're always good to have a backup. I've been lucky in my in-person game where I haven't had to worry about that. I haven't had a problematic person in game in a long time. And I'm thankful for that.
The character sheet audit we had to do.
Like, Matt's a good guy, but he doesn't always get along best with some people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't label him as a problematic player, but I could say that he doesn't always mesh well with people.
There are players that sometimes require special handling.
That's not
Yeah.
bad. He's eclectic, and you need a very particular group to deal with him.
Yeah, Candid just said it best. He said you need special handling sometimes with certain players. And I agree with that. Some people do need special handling, but like... what was my last in-person problematic player? Probably Dipshit. Like, straight up, like, the worst.
Other than the online.
I'm trying to think.
I'm talking about in-person, hon.
In person, you're a dipshit.
No. Chris and Alex.
Yeah.
Not Mark's son.
Right. Gotcha.
Chris's boyfriend was also named Alex.
Yep.
Alex was extreme power gamer.
Yep.
Had to have the most powerful character.
They did not like the you could only have 3 classes rule we have.
Yeah, Alex hated the idea that we had a rule that was you can only have 3 classes. Oh my god, dude loved cherry picking shit.
And we put a stop to it.
I was like, no. And then there was Chris,
That hard.
which Chris was a problematic player in multiple ways, including we believe he stole my wife's wedding ring.
Holy crap.
Prove it.
Yeah, we can't prove it, but he came over to our house for a board game night.
Uh-huh.
The ring went missing not long afterwards, or like during that time period.
Yep.
And then,
Pregnancy brain, so I don't exactly remember when.
yeah, pregnancy brain, so she doesn't remember when exactly the ring disappeared. But not long after that board game night, Alex got a brand new computer. They got an Oculus Rift. And like a few other nice things around their house.
Yep.
And Chris collects disability.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex worked part-time, almost full-time at Walmart.
Yep.
It was like,
That's
this
what you're getting.
does not match.
Even if you got back pay, this doesn't add.
Like I can understand sometimes you can save up money, but this was like a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Because like his brand new computer was almost like a $2,500 computer.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And Chris was straight up murder hobo.
Which is irritating.
Which we should probably bring that up real quick. Murder hobos. Oh boy.
Sure.
Murder hobos.
I mean, I guess murder hobos can be a problem player type if the rest of the group's not on board, and that's if your whole group is murder hoboing and the GM wants to run a murder hobo game, that's fine.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Enjoy yourselves.
But if like you have a couple people who are not murder hobos and you have like a few people who are, that mismatch is a problem.
And that's another good reason to do the session 0 thing, to make sure people's expectations of the focus of the game match, you know. If I'm running D&D, I'm going to do some combat, I'm going to do some role play, I'm going to do some riddles and puzzles.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be a mix of all those things. It's not just murder hobo.
Oh yeah.
And I'll usually be careful to mention that to people.
And that's the fun thing sometimes. It's just like, what is this? Oh. That should be fine. It says the Atom Pyramid, the tomb, and the ruin and the lighthouse didn't get moved over. I don't think we should worry about that. It should be okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
Okay. So I should be able to go in here and just erase this. It's in here. So yeah, while I'm dealing with file transfers. Oh, that's just the double out thing. Mix it out. Okay, yep, never mind. Alright, I can now erase this server. Because I saved it on my computer.
Excellent.
Alright. This will take a little while, but let it do its thing. Alright. But with murder hobos, you have several options to deal with that if you don't want them.
Right.
One, talk to the player and try to convince them not to do it.
Yeah.
If they don't listen very well, make consequences in game for it. I wouldn't necessarily say straight up kill their character, but start letting the authorities know that, hey, you know, or let them know that the authorities are going to take, you know, not kindly to their actions.
Yeah, and I guess let's talk about degree of murder hobo briefly. If it's someone who's just out for hack and slash combat, and you know they're not cutting swaths through shopkeepers, that's that's okay. But if they're, the kind that's like, oh, the shopkeeper isn't going to give me the 10% discount, well, I'm going to take the 100% discount, I'm going to pay the iron price. Then
Yeah.
yeah, not so great.
No.
And I think your first step is still to talk to the player. Like, look, you are playing a character who is a murderer in a society of laws that outlaws murder. You are going to be hunted if you want to continue this course of action. Is that what you want for your character?
Yeah, and you're gonna cause your rest of your party issues too,
Right.
because they're gonna be seen as accomplices.
Though I will say that my limited experience with murder hobos, most of that kind of player is not too worried about how it affects the rest of the party.
Yeah, that's true.
A
Usually,
lot.
the phrase that comes out of their mouths is usually, "It's what my character would do."
Yeah, a lot of problem players share the common trait of selfishness.
Yeah, that is
And,
that is the big thing. It's so hard to talk to them about that sometimes because sometimes you just can't fix that.
right.
With murder hobos, you can also recommend to them, it's like, hey, the authorities are going to come after you. That's not going to end well for you. Doesn't necessarily mean killing. Could mean capture. Could mean, shopkeepers stop selling you things.
Uh-huh.
You're not allowed in towns anymore.
Yeah.
And, adventurers come after you of
Yeah.
various, degrees of power. And you get enough attention, you'll get a high enough adventurer level, you'll get epic level heroes coming after your ass. Because they'll see you as a threat to the world. It's like, you must go. And that's something that some players don't quite get.
Yeah. Other kinds of, lesser problem players you might see are the PvP guy or the,
Oh god, the PvP guy.
the grim dark loner edgelord. Sometimes they are one and the same character. Again, these are things that you can partially address in session 0. Like, hey, I expect all of your characters to have a reason to adventure. I'll provide a way for your characters to meet each other, but they need to then decide to work together, or else we're not really having a campaign together. So you guys need to work with me on that.
Yeah, like there has to be something done, like as a team. And sometimes you can work with that to like come up with interesting backgrounds, stuff like that. My soon to be evil game right now that I'm running right now, when it ends, the players, I'm going to take all their character sheets and collect them, and they're going to be the villains for the next game.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to tell all the players, it's like, okay, your next character has to have a connection to one of the previous characters, but it cannot be your own.
Okay.
So that way it gives people that thing where they have to pay somewhat attention to what's going on.
Sure.
So there is that. And also I want to try to convince everybody to take a different character.
Yeah.
So that way no one's character is ignored. Some people make it easier than others, though, with their actions.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't do much on that front.
Yeah, there are limits to what the GM can do, and basically, you can keep your eyes open for problem players, try to head things off in session 0, and just, yeah, if you see a problem, try to do something early rather than let it linger and fester.
Which was the problem I had. I
Yeah.
let it linger and fester like an idiot.
I mean, everybody's got to have a learning experience.
Yeah, I did it bad. So it happens.
Yeah.
Even seasoned DMs make mistakes.
Yeah. Let this be a lesson that even experienced DMs make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We are not perfect. No one is perfect. And
No.
And by the way, a session 0 can help fix, by the way, the dreaded Matt Mercer effect. Christ.
Sure.
Because that shows proper expectations. But, like, I want people to understand, it's like, do not expect any D&D game to be Critical Role.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Those guys are professional voice actors. They have a lot of money behind them, especially if you watch Season 2 and on. There's just no D&D game has that much money. Alright? Most guys, we have a few miniatures. We have usually some sort of board that we can draw on. Like, we don't have the Dwarven Fortress, map built every week that's unique and different.
That shit's expensive.
You get what I mean, man?
Yeah. Hell, I have a 3D printer and I've printed tiles, but it's too much effort to, do a big tile dungeon for every session. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a ton. And not all of us have that time.
Yeah, and unlike Critical Role, we don't have, production assistants.
Yeah. We don't have a crew behind us helping us. It's one dude. We're one person doing this.
I think I've only ever had one player who was a big, Critter fan, and she had no problem differentiating, that's what they're able to do on, the show. That is not my expectation of real-life gaming, but it helps that she was a gamer before Critical Role was a thing, so she had experienced normal gaming.
Karen did not get into D&D until after Critical Role. But she wasn't that bad when it came to expecting Critical Role versus, reality.
Right.
So at least that's an upside for her. Jerky. Nom nom nom. Alright. With that being said, I do need to eat dinner at some point.
Alright.
So it is 9 o'clock. Let's see, who shall we hit today for the raid? Let's see. Bricky's just chatting. Got some Shimmery Kimmery doing Sea of Thieves. Puzzle Monkeys doing Stardew Valley. Thor's Dad Bods doing Divinity Original Sin 2. Got some Minecraft. Got a bunch of fucking Fortnite. Melissa and Denial's doing Stardew Valley. Dead Smurfs doing Fortnite. Okay. Mike the T is doing Pokemon Fire Red Leaf Green. Okay. Someone's doing Star Ocean the Second Evolution. Never heard of that one. Blade Advent is doing Raid Shadow Legends. It was a sponsored raid, so that would be why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Because no one plays that game unless they're paid to do it.
I imagine there's got to be someone who enjoys it. I've never played it myself.
It's run by a casino.
Oh, well, that fits.
Yeah, the company that owns it is a casino. And it is microtransaction hell.
Duly noted.
Yeah. And then we got Angel Woman doing Final Fantasy XIV. And someone doing Genshin Impact.
Breath of the Waifu.
Yeah, Wrath of the Waifu.
Or Breath of the Waifu is what I said.
Breath of the Waifu.
It sort of looks like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but it's all about getting your anime waifu.
Fair enough. Someone doing Halo. Elder Scrolls Online. Who shall I raid today? Paladins. Sims 4. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Holy shit.
Yeah, someone's doing retro.
That takes me back.
Oh, yeah. Someone's your Dragon Age Origins, but I've rated her a lot recently. Let's see what the Final Fantasy 14 person's doing, because I like 14. Unless we get someone who wants to spend the points to choose the raid. Raid! So while we're waiting for the ads, we'll get this taken care of. Alright, so make sure that you're taking care of yourselves mentally, physically. That's important. Alright? If you are a follower, make sure you use the following message. If you are a subscriber, please make sure you're using the following message. Use that wonderful food goblin. Alright? And tomorrow we'll be doing more Dragon Age Origins because it's more further adventures. Hi, Kroll.
In under the wire.
In under the wire. God damn it. It makes my brain malfunction. I swear to God.
It's not getting any better. You should probably disconnect it before it gives you a heart attack.
It's not scaring me anymore. That's the thing. Like, it's not making my heart rate increase. It's just making my brain skip beats and making me make weird noises. So it's like the fear response is no longer the heartbeat increase. It's now the like noise. It's alright, Kroll. It's there for a reason. It's there for entertainment reasons. Alright. So, looks like she's fighting Leviathan. Oh, goody. That'll be fun. So, let us raid... What is this person's name again? Angie Woman. I feel like that's like a Digimon.
I think it is.
Yep. Alright. So, we are going to go raid Angel Woman, and she is doing Final Fantasy 14, fighting Leviathan. Let's go show her some love. I will see you all tomorrow for Dragon Age, where we are going to deal with the Mage's Tower and the abominations that lie within, because that's going to be fun. So I'll see you then. Toodles.
Catch you all later. Bye.